There is a moment in a Cancer's life that feels like standing at the edge of the ocean at night, watching the tide pull back with quiet certainty. Not dramatic, not loud, just undeniable. It's the moment you realize you've been chasing love, chasing clarity, chasing someone's attention, chasing the version of yourself you thought you had to become to finally be chosen. And in that moment, something ancient inside you whispers, enough. Because Cancer doesn't chase out of weakness. Cancer chases out of devotion, out of hope, out of the sacred belief that if you love harder, hold tighter, stay longer, explain better, forgive faster, give more, eventually the world will soften. Eventually the person will understand. Eventually you'll be safe. But the truth is, love was never meant to be proven by your exhaustion, and safety was never meant to cost you your spirit. If you've ever felt like you were always the one reaching first, always the one sending the message, offering the apology, carrying the emotional weather of the whole room, subscribe to Signs and Secrets now, because this is where we turn sensitivity into power and we stop confusing loyalty with self-abandonment. Cancer, the moment you stop chasing, everything changes. Not because you become cold, not because you stop caring, but because you finally stop running after what keeps running away from you. And the universe, which has been watching you bleed devotion into empty spaces, finally has room to put something real in your hands. You are ruled by the moon, and that means your heart moves in cycles. You know what it is to feel full, radiant, generous, then suddenly quiet, withdrawn, protective. You've blamed yourself for those shifts. You've called it moodiness, insecurity, too much. But what if your emotional tides were never the problem? What if they were the warning system of your soul, telling you when you're pouring into people who don't know how to hold water? A Cancer can build a home out of love. You can take two strangers and make them feel like family. You can sense a person's pain before they can name it. You can remember little details that make people feel seen, like you're stitching warmth into the cold parts of their day. But when you chase, you turn that gift into a leash, something that pulls you toward places you were never meant to stay. Chasing is what happens when your heart believes it must earn what should be freely offered. Chasing is what happens when your inner child still thinks love is something you have to perform for. Like affection is a prize, and you must be perfect to deserve it. Chasing is what happens when you confuse longing with destiny. And Cancer, you have a deep, mysterious talent for making longing feel holy. But there's a different kind of holiness. It's quieter. It's the holiness of surrender. The holiness of letting the tide do what it does. The holiness of finally saying, if it's meant for me, it won't require me to betray myself. When you stop chasing, your nervous system exhales. Your mind stops replaying conversations like a courtroom. Your chest stops tightening every time your phone lights up, or doesn't. You stop measuring your worth in replies, in consistency, in effort, in crumbs of attention. And in that space, your intuition, your true Cancer gift, returns like a lighthouse turning back on. Because here's what happens when you stop chasing. You start noticing. You start noticing who only comes close when you're convenient, who loves your softness but resents your needs, who enjoys being cared for but disappears when it's time to care back. You start seeing patterns that were always there, but you couldn't face them because you were busy trying to fix everything with more love. And the most painful part is this. Cancer often believes that if you just love enough, the person will become who you know they could be. You don't just fall in love with what someone is. You fall in love with what someone could become if they felt safe, if they healed, if they tried, if they finally saw you the way you see them. But you are not here to be anyone's life raft while they refuse to learn how to swim. The moment you stop chasing, your energy changes from pleading to presence, from hoping to knowing, from please choose me to I choose myself. And that shift is magnetic, not in a manipulative way, in a spiritual way. Because the universe responds when you stop begging for what you're aligned with. There are people who were never impressed by your sacrifices, only entitled to them. And there are people who were never going to meet you in the deep, only enjoy watching you drown for them. When you stop chasing, those people feel it. Your absence becomes a mirror. Your silence becomes a boundary. Your distance becomes the consequence they didn't think you had the courage to create. And Cancer, you might be afraid of that consequence. You might fear being seen as mean, selfish, overreacting. You might fear that if you stop chasing, you'll lose the person forever. But listen closely. If you must chase someone to keep them, you never truly had them. You were just keeping the connection alive with your own life force. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is stop. Stop explaining. Stop proving. Stop checking. Stop waiting at the door of someone else's heart like you're not allowed to come inside. The right love doesn't require your anxiety. The right love doesn't punish your feelings. The right love doesn't make you feel like you're asking for too much when you're really just asking for the bare minimum. And right here, somewhere in the middle of your awakening, let this message be a gentle hand on your shoulder. If this is resonating, take a second to like the video, not as a favor, but as a small commitment to your own healing. Let it be a signal to yourself that you're ready for a new pattern, a new standard, a new story. Because once you stop chasing, your standards start speaking louder than your emotions. You stop romanticizing inconsistency. You stop calling neglect space. You stop calling disrespect miscommunication. You stop shrinking to keep peace. And the world around you has to adjust, because your soul is no longer negotiating its value. Join as a member to support the channel and unlock exclusive content. Now breathe with me for a moment, Cancer. Feel what it's like to be held by your own presence, to not reach for someone else's hand to steady your heart, to not need reassurance every time the moon inside you shifts. This is what true emotional power feels like. Not numbness, but groundedness. Not detachment, but self-trust. And here's the wild part. When you stop chasing, the universe starts delivering. Not always the person you wanted, not always the timing you planned, but the truth you needed. The clarity you prayed for in the middle of the night. The confirmation that your intuition was never too sensitive, it was accurate. Sometimes the person comes back the moment you stop chasing, because your absence forces them to feel what your presence was covering up. Sometimes they return with sudden effort, sudden sweetness, sudden realizations. And Cancer, you'll be tempted to run back into the familiar, because familiarity can feel like fate when you're tired. But this is where your transformation gets serious. You don't measure love by panic. You measure love by consistency. Other times, they don't come back. And that can break your heart in a way that feels like the ocean collapsing inward. But even then, everything changes, because you finally see that the door was never locked. You were the one who kept standing outside, afraid to walk away from something that wasn't opening. And when you walk away, you don't just leave the person, you leave the version of yourself that believed love is supposed to hurt. Your sign is the caretaker, the nurturer, the emotional architect. You can sense what someone needs before they speak. You can hold pain with such tenderness that people feel safe enough to cry around you. But your healing is learning that you are not a rehabilitation center for the emotionally unavailable. You are not a home for people who only visit when they're lonely. You are a sanctuary, and sanctuaries have gates. If you want to make this message personal, I want you to comment your date of birth and your zodiac sign, because there's something powerful about naming yourself out loud, like you're telling the universe, this is who I am, and this is what I'm ready to outgrow. Cancer, you don't stop chasing because you stop loving. You stop chasing because you start loving better. You start loving with boundaries. You start loving with discernment. You start loving with the wisdom of someone who has finally realized the heart is not a place for just anyone to live. You will still feel deeply. You will still remember. You will still care. That's your magic. But you will no longer confuse your empathy with obligation. You will no longer translate someone's lack of effort into a challenge for you to work harder. You will no longer carry the emotional weight of relationships that were never designed to be carried by one person. And as you continue, you'll notice the subtle miracles. Your sleep becomes softer. Your mind becomes quieter. Your body relaxes. You laugh without forcing it. You reconnect with the parts of yourself you abandoned while trying to be easy to love. You return to your own life like a tide returning to shore. The moment you stop chasing, you become the kind of person who doesn't need to be chosen to feel chosen. You become the kind of person who can be alone without feeling abandoned. You become the kind of person who can love without losing yourself. And that is when the universe starts sending what matches you, not what drains you. So if this spoke to the part of you that's been tired for a long time, subscribe to Signs and Secrets and stay close. There are messages meant to find you at the exact moment you're ready to stop repeating the same emotional lesson in different faces. And before you go, like the video if you're choosing peace over pursuit, and subscribe if you're ready to let love meet you halfway, because you were never meant to chase what's meant to stay. If you want to hear everything the universe has to say to you, watch these other videos on our channel.